Back in the summer of 1995, the level of violence on the streets was intense. Nowadays, bloodshed still exists within the Asian gangs of California, but the level of violence has gone down due to most organizations wanting to focus on money. But back in the late 80s to early 2000s, home invasion was a popular play for a lot of these Asian gangs. Most of the time, these gangs would target other Asian families because they wouldn't alert the authorities and there was a higher chance of cash being in the house. Out of all the Asian gangs that frequently engage in home invasion style robberies, one particular hood comes to mind, and it has got to be the Tiny Rascals gang. The Rascals are based out of Long Beach but have sets all throughout California. Back when burglaries and home invasions were really popular, gang members would often travel along the coast in search of new recruits and also new houses to hit. A lot of these home invasions would often turn violent, resulting in innocent victims losing their lives over a couple $1,000s. Out of all the incidents that were happening in the 90s, shit was really going down in 1995, all because of Peter Chun, aka Chaka. Chaka was considered a shot caller within the Tiny Rascals gang, and it is alleged that he was the mastermind behind a string of events that resulted in two families losing their lives during a home invasion robbery. Overall, Chaka was known for being incredibly violent, and it's still unclear just how many bodies this man actually has, but he is currently sitting on death row and has been for the past 22 years since January 4th, the year 2000. But before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe because I'm dropping videos like this every single week. And if you want to make a request about a certain video, don't forget to get at me on Instagram. But without further ado, let's get into it. Chaka was born in Cambodia in 1972, shortly before the Khmer Rouge took over the country. His father was a rice farmer and was drafted to fight against the regime. When Chaka was just a little kid, their family got attacked and they had to hide under a Buddhist temple for over a week. But the Khmer Rouge eventually took over his hometown, imprisoned his father, and sent Chaka and his brother off to a work camp. Conditions of these work camps were horrible, often leading to children dying due to the lack of food. His family was eventually freed when the Vietnamese drove out the Khmer Rouge. After being freed, they walked to Thailand for 3 days and 2 nights. Yeah, they walked. While walking to the Thailand border, they witnessed an entire family get blown up right in front of them by landmines. After making it to the refugee camps, they eventually made their way to the United States as refugees and settled in Mobile, Alabama, where they would stay for 4 years before eventually settling down in California. And if you couldn't tell by now, our man Chaka had a pretty fucked up childhood, and I think it's only right that we cover what happened to him when he was a kid to try to fully understand how this guy became to be such a violent individual. Here in California, Chaka didn't have the best upbringing either, and he didn't have a lot of parental guidance due to the fact that his parents probably hardly spoke any English and didn't really understand what type of problems the United States came with. It's not surprising that Chaka eventually found himself affiliated with the Tiny Rascals gang, and he earned a lot of status amongst his peers and eventually became a shot caller. And by the age of 20, he was already fully involved with the streets. On July 10th, 1995, Chaka and his homies busted into an apartment on 3203 North Smith Street. The apartment belonged to Johnny Hagen, age 27, and Ty Pham, age 23. They were both tied up before they both got shot in the chest and head, execution style. Pham's wedding ring was found inside her mouth, and her jaw was also broken in 2 places. Chaka and the homies took the jewelry and cash in the house and bounced. And judging from how violent this shit was, there had to be a backstory to all of this. It's rumored that the couple was involved in welfare fraud, illegal video rentals, and also loved to gamble, so they weren't exactly upstanding citizens, but this was still a messed up situation regardless. 2 weeks after the Spokane murders, Chaka and the homies would hit up another house. This house was located on 1600 Elm Street in San Bernardino and belonged to the Wen family. Henry Wen, his wife Trin Tran, and their 4 children Doan, Daniel, David, and Dennis were all home. The crew barged into the house with weapons, and Chaka demanded the cash and was given about $2,000 by the husband. After receiving the money, the group attempted to murder the entire family, but messed up and forgot about Dennis, the 3-year-old boy. The boy was left overnight in the house with the deceased family as well. On August 6th, 1995, just a week after the Elm Street murders, Chaka and a couple of his homeboys were driving around San Bernardino in search of rival gang members from the Oriental Boys. Chaka and his homies were in his Honda driving around the Mesquite area when they spotted a red Toyota Celica, and Chaka had reason to believe that the driver was a member of the Oriental Boys. The group of rascals followed the red Celica for a while until the opportunity arose to strike. Chaka and his co-defendants fired a total of 39 rounds into the Celica until it pulled off to the side of the road and stopped. Seeing that the driver of the Celica was slumped over, Chaka gave his homie another clip to go make sure the driver was dead. So Rusty got out of the car and dumped 3 more bullets into the victim. The driver of the red Celica was Bun Lort Bun, a member of the Oriental Boys, and I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing his name right, so I apologize in advance. Chaka and a couple of his homies drove up to Sacramento in search of a new lick. They met up with the homie Puppet, and he suggested robbing an apartment where the owners sold cigarettes and other items. Chaka and his homies would hit up the apartment on the evening of July 27th, 1995, which resulted in a scuffle inside of the house. The scuffle between the 2 occupants inside the house left them both dead due to gunshot wounds to the head. Aside from this situation, there are other events believed to be tied to our man Chaka, but I'm not going to get into the details on the other cases in this video, but I don't think I need to go into further detail to really make you guys understand just how insane this guy actually was. Given his past, it's not that surprising that he ended up the way he did. Being exposed to all of that violence from a young age definitely had something to do with shaping how he became such a ruthless individual. Am I trying to excuse this man of all of his actions? Definitely not, but I found this story fascinating and terrifying at the same time. There's no way to excuse the actions of somebody that took the lives of so many innocent women and children, but it's hard not to wonder what Chaka's future would have looked like if he had the proper care and guidance when he arrived to the United States as a war refugee. After going through what he went through, I am fully convinced that he had some sort of PTSD, and being malnourished as a kid definitely hindered his brain development as a young one. On top of having this PTSD, he was malnourished for most of his youth, and that definitely fucked with his brain development. A scan of his brain showed Chaka's prefrontal lobe to have decreased activity. Portions of his brain were also asymmetrical, which is a clear sign of PTSD. After reading all of that, I kind of started to wonder how many more children and refugees coming from Cambodia didn't have the proper care when they arrived in the United States and really had no guidance from their parents. And it's not surprising to see such a concentrated level of gangs within this community. Schools at the time were not prepared for these Cambodian refugees. Oftentimes, nobody in these schools knew how to speak Cambodian, and a lot of these kids had to be taught English. On top of these kids having no parental guidance and hardly any support from their schools, they were surrounded by gang members from all sorts of neighborhoods. So it's only natural that these kids join gangs themselves. All of this is a perfect recipe for disaster. And I think we can all take away a lot from this horrible situation. But that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you subscribe because I'm dropping videos like this every single week. But until next time, I'll be seeing you guys later. Peace.